Jay Powell is out of the way, pausing the federal funds rate yet again because not enough information to actually cut rates as many consumers may want, and also as President Trump wants him to do as well. So in this video, what I want to do is I want to go over what you see in the thumb there, which is NVIDIA broke out above 116 today, and I want to decide tomorrow or give you information as what to watch for. Is it ready to take off to that 120, that 123 level, or is this a fake out and we fell back underneath? There's some key clues I want to go over that you should watch for the remainder of the week and be prepared for next week, as we have a lot of data coming in potentially for this trade deal that U.S. Secretary Bessent is headed over to China, which I think he's there right now, and there's supposed to be a trade deal or in talks on May 8th, which is tomorrow at the time of this recording. All right, welcome to the channel, everybody. Hopefully you're doing well. You can read more about myself. My name is Dr. B. Down below on my website, brianmcelderry.com. You can also check out our Discord, where you can join into top-level professionals, entrepreneurial-minded people, entrepreneurs full-time, and traders and long-term investors that want to learn this skill set of not only trading, but also long-term investing in the financial markets. All right, so thank you all so much for the support. I did record a live video today discussing the FOMC meeting. So if you want to check that out and watching your leisure and just see how the stocks actually move during an FOMC meeting on the charts, I think it's really helpful, especially for a lot of beginners that really are trying to figure out how the stock moves, because it's very easy once we get on here and it's still, right? And I can tell you levels to watch for. All right. So without further ado, let's jump into the charts and our data for today and get you ready for the remainder of the week. All right. Make sure you hit that like button, that subscribe button, notification bell, and would love to have your support here on the channel. All right, so we have here, I'm just going to go over a couple of key, essentially responses from today. Okay, Trump trade deal, first of many. I need to read more into that exactly. Trade deal with highly respected country. Okay, so is he alluding to the fact that this could be China? Is this India? We don't know just yet, unless you have news down below at the time of this recording. If it's already posted, let me know down below and I'll comment as well and update in the comments. All right. U.S. President schedules news conference on May trade, but I want to look at more so Powell's responses from today, because there's this back and forth battle between President Trump and Fed Jerome Powell talking about, hey, I don't have enough data to cut rates. And then President Trump is strong arming him. Still, we're calling it World War III between Trump and Powell, forcing him to try to cut rates. All right. So Powell says Fed doesn't have enough tools that are good to address supply chain issues. Focus is making the best decision for the American people. I've never asked for a meeting with President Trump, would never do that. It hasn't happened that the president wants to meet with me. He's just essentially saying, hey, you need to cut rates without any rationale necessarily. Downside risk have increased. Quantitative easing wasn't beyond the confines of our mandate, and don't see big enough economic effects in the data yet from tariffs. Now, you may not have full understanding of this, and I'm not saying I do as well. However, I've mentioned before in our previous videos that you as a consumer, you and I, as consumers, want rate cuts. Right? The markets want rate cuts because that will spur the market higher. Everyone's portfolios will go back up. People can get car loans cheaper before these tariffs hit, right? They can maybe refinance their home. They can get in some real estate deals, pick up some investments, right? Things of that nature, that a lot of people want those rate cuts. But if you understand rate cuts, rate hikes, rate pauses, right? If you cut rates too early, very similar to what happened in 2020 when the Fed drastically cut rates and you got those 2%, 3%, some people 1% mortgage rates, right? And car loans were 1%, 2%, 3%, right? I know from experience. So these low rates, they may be good in the short term, but if you cut them too soon with bad economic data and conditions, it could turn the market into a deeper recession and depression later down the road. So short term, heightened excitement potentially for a latter pain in the future. All right. So that's just education more so for my beginners or anyone that's like, man, he needs to cut rates. And what is he doing? Like, he needs to help us out. Why does he keep pausing? If you know, you know. All right. So there's our data there. Okay. And what happened today? If we type in NVIDIA here, we want to look at a couple of key notable mentions that was interesting in the market today, which was NVIDIA. Okay. Breaking: NVIDIA stock surges as President Trump prepares to remove the Biden era chip export restrictions. Okay, so that spurred a couple of the chip stocks higher. AMD reported and was fading and then popped on this, along with NVIDIA popped over that 116 at the end of the market, along with AVGO and a couple other semis. Now, I'll show you ARM, which had poor guidance on their earnings, and they went down after hours. So NVIDIA calls going to look good tomorrow. We'll see. That's what we're going to discuss in this video. All right. So Kathy Wood bought 100 shares of, 100,000 shares of NVIDIA today. So interesting. Okay. So I want to show you how to trade this properly. Let's look at Google as well, and Apple, which also had some interesting news, and they were down roughly, Google almost 9%. Okay. 9%. Let's just jump straight on the charts. Okay. So I'm gonna go to Google really quick, and then we'll make our focus on NVIDIA, because I know people are like, what in the world? So if you see here, Google had this big red candle on the daily from 165 and went all the way down to 147 at the lows. All right. So if you can see there, it closed at 7%, but reached roughly down 9%. Now, this is great dip buying opportunity. If you bought the dip, this technically closed at a higher low than this previous low of 147.66, where that yellow line is. So that is still fairly bullish, right? Yes, it did kind of form a little bear flag, broke that trend, retested, but it did find a higher support level than before, okay, on a daily. All right. So this is a good dip buying opportunity. In my opinion, I think it was a little sporadic. It was a little bit just overdone. All right. So if we go to Apple and look at that news, I'll show you exactly what it was if you're not abreast. Okay. So Alphabet or Google falls 4% after Apple says it's exploring adding AI to the Safari browser. Now, we know Google is the leading search engine, and then Apple comes out and says, hey, we're exploring adding some AI, which, may interfere. It may, and you get what I'm saying. It is not going to interfere with Google and their search engine there, but it did spur some downside with Google and Apple. Apple a little bit less. As you can see, Apple spurred as low as roughly about 3% at the lows, went all the way down to 193, closed at 196.25. Okay. So great dip buying opportunities, in my opinion, for both of these. Now, they are still affected by tariffs, but in the short term, they should recover pretty nicely from this drop that we had today. Okay. So I'll discuss some of those trading ideas from those, but let's go into the stock of the hour, which is going to be all eyes on NVIDIA tomorrow with that Trump news. Okay. So after hours, right? Like you saw here. Okay. Robinhood shows after hours. So this was 17 minutes ago. So we're looking almost at 119 roughly for NVIDIA after hours. And if you can see on my Webull chart, that would put NVIDIA roughly around this area here. Okay. Okay. So the trade on NVIDIA was waiting for a break above really 116. Okay. And we got that very strong break at the end of the market. Now, if I go down to my 5-minute, what we were watching here is this break and retest. Do you see that break? Closed that 5-minute candle strong, retested that 115.50, and then closed the market above 116 at 117.06. Okay, so that is bullish strength. Now, where is NVIDIA trying to go? It's trying to go to 120. Okay, it's trying to go to 120. All right, so if you got into NVIDIA or you've already been in NVIDIA calls, right, they do have earnings at the end of the month on the 23rd. Okay, you can see right here, they have, on the 28th at the end of the month. So where's NVIDIA trying to head? Ideally, if I turn on a couple moving averages here, it's trying to get back to this daily 200 moving average, which is roughly around 123 to 124. All right. If you want to just make it a nice psychological level, it's trying to get back to that 125 level. All right. But it's got a couple of barriers in the way. All right. So what I want you to watch for tomorrow is, if you are fairly new to options, it's going to be a Thursday. All right. Most people, as you saw right there, anyone holding NVIDIA calls looking good for tomorrow. Okay. So if you see stuff like this, right, which you'll see around the markets, jump into calls right away. Yes, you can. You can jump into starters. There's going to be a lot of bullish momentum, in my opinion, a lot of volume on NVIDIA tomorrow, because buyers and bulls have been waiting for this consolidation breakout for roughly about 6-7 days. Okay. So let's do a measured move. Okay. From this last breakout right here, this bull flag breakout, and bring it over. Okay. Little trick here. Bring it over to this next breakout leg, which would take it roughly up into that level we talked about. Okay. So a couple of trades that you can look for in NVIDIA. I wish you would have done this at the beginning of the week because, yeah, end of the week, it gets a little bit antsy, you know, especially if you trade weekly contracts. So since this is a public platform, I'll give you some game plan ideas. All right. You ideally want to pull back into 116. You do not want to trade up into 118, 119. Okay. That is going to be a heavy level excuse me, of sellers that are potentially stacked up at that level. Okay. I want you to look here and I want you to look at this level over here. Do you see that resistance right there into 119, 118, 119, 118? Okay. So you do not want to chase if it's already running up into this 119, 118 level. Okay. Maybe it wants to tap 120 because you do have a little bit of a gap. Excuse me. Let me get that off my screen so I can move things around. There we go. Okay. So right now, NVIDIA is here, 118 and some change. Okay. It's trying to get obviously to here, but it's got to get through this level of 120. Okay. And it's got to get through this 118.80 or 119 level. Okay. So here's how it would look for my visual folks. Okay. Here's how a candle is looking right now after hours. Okay. Just like that. So if you jump into calls immediately at open tomorrow and it's already close to 119, 120, right? There could be a pullback into that 116 almost immediately. And that's what this title is about. Is it breakout or fake out? Okay. You do not want to chase, ideally, unless you're experiencing, you like breakout trades, right? But a breakout trade in this type of market can trap bulls up into those highs. So what trade would be the safest would be waiting for a pullback back into that 116. Okay. So this is what I would mark ideally. Okay. Create a zone like that and try to wait for a pullback into 116. The deeper, the better. Maybe some starters at 116, 117, because that was yesterday's close. Okay. Maybe it doesn't pull back as deep as we want because bulls are going to be so strong. So here's where the market is now. Okay. So that's how it looks right now. If we push up a little bit higher into that level, let me do it on a shorter time frame here so you can actually see. Okay. So this is how the candle looks right now. All right. Based off of what I'm seeing here in the market after hours. Let me look on my phone and see as well. Yeah. So there you go. Can you see that? All right, it's probably reversed, but 118.48. Okay. 118.48. So it reached a high of 118.97. Okay. So it's right. It reached a high right there. So it got all the way up into that level. Okay. It's already made the move. All right. It's already made the move. What does that mean, Brian? That means that if you didn't catch it down here or you didn't catch on this breakout of 115 right at the end of the market, buyers are essentially going to be looking and saying, hey, that's my trade. I'm going to trim some profits at open. I may get a little bit more into 120, but I'm going to look at trimming some profits right at open, trapping, pulling back, trying to find a support, and then trying to take out the high. Okay. So I'm making this video because you may be seeing, some things around the market, and you may be trying to trade options and you're like, man, NVIDIA is going. I told y'all there's a proper way of trading this if you're trading options more specifically. If you're in shares, let them ride, pick up some more on the dip, things of that nature. Okay. Now we want to make sure. So that's one trade. Wait for that pullback into the 116, 116.50. You may get down into 117 where you can grab starters. Keep your stop loss underneath 115.50. Right? 115.50. The reason being is because if it fails back underneath that previous high, and this is a fake out, right? A big fake out like that. I'm not saying that's going to happen, right? But that is what can happen, and you've seen happen before for some people, okay? So you do not want to get caught with everyone taking profits up here and you're jumping in calls right away, all right? So wait for that pullback ideally, and then take it up. Now, another trade is getting above that 120 and basing, okay? So Brian, what if you say wait and pull back and it never pulls back and you get that break above into that 121 or so, 120, 50, and it pulls back and it holds 119 and then reclaims 120, then yeah, it's just going to be a catapult right into that 123, 124 area. Okay. That is a possibility, right? But I'm pretty sure that any NVIDIA call holder is going to probably be trimming some profits close to that 119, 120. All right. So got to remember, we still have, and I'm not saying this is going to happen immediately, but we still have those gaps below that need to be filled. So let's look at it here and I'll let you go. Okay, let's clear this up a little bit. So remember, it's already here, right? It's already right there into that 119. So do you see, if you look at it on a daily, there's a high level of resistance up into this 121, 122 area right there. Once it fills that gap, right, there's a possibility for any type of rejection in this zone. If I spread this out like that, there's a possibility. Sellers, 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 1, 2, 3, break underneath, a lot of action right there into that 121, 122 area. So it's already there. So there's a possibility that this comes here, forms a lower high, and we come back down, because you got to remember, like I said before at the beginning of this video, Fed Powell is not bullish. This is going based off of Trump's feed, right? This is going based off Trump's feed, which is fine. But if this is a fake out breakout, right, you just want to be, have your head on a swivel. Right? Never chase a move until it's confirmed, especially an after hours move like this. Okay. NVIDIA is already at 119 roughly. Okay. So into that 120, 122, got to be mindful. Okay. You can scalp it up if you want, but if it's already up there, I'm be looking to maybe trade the downside or wait for that deeper pullback. All right. So that was the move I was looking for. That was the move that most people were looking for, is to fill that upper top of the gap back to 120, back to 122, so on and so forth. Fill that top gap right there. All right. So really quick, last one that's in the same sector. ARM could be a trading opportunity tomorrow. Told my community about this one. All right, you can see there, failed breakdown, maybe a retest of roughly 114, 115. I'll be watching for, fail back underneath that level. If I can get a pop back up underneath there. But if it falls and fails underneath this 110, there are some gaps below, if you can see there, that it might want to just continue. It's almost identical to how Google looked. Okay. Do you see how Google looked today when it released that news? There was a gap right there. And there was a little small gap down at the bottom here as well. Okay, down to 147. So ARM could present a little bit of the same opportunity here if it just continues underneath that 109 level. Okay, failure underneath that 110, get underneath that 109, get a retest, and then just continue down into that lower end of the range, probably closer to 100, 101. So keep a lookout for that tomorrow. Ideally, want to wait for a pop and see a failure or a breakdown and failure, and watch for that break underneath that 109 level. And you can take puts down with really no liquidity, nothing but room down into that probably gap. All right. So be a trade I'll look for tomorrow on ARM. But that's it. That's all I had today. Thank y'all so much. Want to touch on NVIDIA because I know there's going to be a lot of eyes on it tomorrow. A lot of eyes on the semiconductor sector, and SPY and QQQ are not that, they didn't close that strong to me. Okay. A lot of top wicks here, a lot of top wicks here. If the market's fairly weak tomorrow and it can't break out, right, watch for that as well to spur NVIDIA lower. If the market can't really get moving to the upside, we still close from a lower high, higher low from yesterday, but still that pre-market low still just could not get up to that top end level. So we want to watch those, that SPY, QQQ, fairly, still a lot of sellers stacked up there at the top. All right. So that's what was a little bit concerning to me, taking NVIDIA higher just off some news if the market is fairly weak. All right. Peace, love, and blessings. If you want to join Leverage University, if you want to learn more about this and how to trade, check the free videos out on the channel, but also get involved in our community, our Discord, where we have trade ideas. I educate, I teach inside of my live trading sessions. I'm trying to put more here on the channel so you can see the actual movement. Make sure you check those out. Give me a like, subscribe, notification bell, all those good things. Check out my website, brianmcelderry.com. Read more about myself, right? Do your due diligence, and I'll see y'all in the next video. Peace.